Hi, it's What If Wednesday time with Susan Bennett Fisher and Martin Fisher, the co-founders of Body of Nine. Welcome to What If Wednesday. What if you knew how to talk about this to people? I think it's been one of the most challenging aspects of teaching and doing this work is finding ways to talk about something that's brand new in the world to people in a way that they can get it.
Yes, because there's two sets of problems. Firstly, how do you explain to people what Body of Nine is all about? And that's one of the reasons we do these shows. The other most interesting part is once you've had the experience, once you've been honoured, you've been seen, you've understood that you're connecting to your personal magic, then you're all excited and you want to tell your friends about it. And the friends are like, well, but what?
Yeah. Well,
so we're going to spend
this some sort of woo-woo thing or
Yes.
what, you know?
So today we're going to spend some time giving you hints and ideas and ways to talk about this so that you can express your excitement to your friends.
Yeah. Or if you've never heard of Body of Nine, maybe you'll get interested from listening to what we're talking about here. So what is Body of Nine? It's so many things. That's the thing that is challenging about it. It's a context for understanding humanity. There are 9 physiologically different kinds of people, so you could approach it from the physiological direction. So 9 centers in our body, 3 in the head, 3 in the chest, 3 in the core of the body. And you can talk about the physicality of it. Or you can talk about it as sets of talents, skills, and behaviors that people have. If you look at personality models, you can talk about it in terms of personality models. Well, if somebody knows the Enneagram or Myers-Briggs or one of the personality models, you can relate it to that.
Or even perhaps just go as far into the left field as astrology. People understand that there are at least 12 different houses that the heavens go through, and people have understood that you can look at your sign, big in the 80s, that you can give some idea about that person. So there's a myriad of different ways to talk to people about how this is. The thing about, for example, astrology is that many people go to astrology and say, oh, this is all woo-woo, astrology is not real. Well, maybe not.
I want to address that. So the most important thing is you find the thing that gives you an analogy to talk about it. And then you express to people that it's something that's true about humanity, about people, and find your way of talking about it that works. So it's hard to take new information and not try to give it a context within something that you know about.
Especially because there's 9 different ways everything gets expressed.
Right, and each person uses language in a different way. So that does make this really challenging.
So you could go to someone that is a different natural energy than yours, which is probably most people in your relationship sphere, and you can try and explain it in the way that you understand it, and they will give you a blank look, because actually it's hard for them to understand in a way that you can relate to, because the words you're using won't make any sense to them.
Right, and then you have the complication of age. How do you talk to a kid, a little kid, a medium kid, a grown-up kid, a peer, a colleague, or an adult? So it's about really feeling into using your own natural number. What is this person hearing? What are they able to see? What do I know about them? Do they seem to want to have eye contact as part of why I'm talking about them or not? So there's. The more you know about Body of Nine, the easier it gets to talk about, and the harder at the same time.
Yes, and I think that's part of the challenge that we always have, is that there is no one phrase that everyone is going to resonate with. In fact, even the 9 phrases that people we believe would resonate with, it's difficult to explain which of those 9 are going to resonate with you.
So let's each pick one and explain it from that perspective.
That's a great idea.
I'm going to pick the body just because that's always my favorite and easiest. I go back to the body all the time. I'm a body type. 2, 4, 6, and 8 are body types. And so we talk about life from the terms of how our body is experiencing things. That makes it easy for me to explain from a body perspective. So I go to there's 9 physiologically different kinds of people. And your body, it's born in you. And your body is shaped by the experience and every aspect of your senses, how your senses work, what you care about, what you're good at, where your skills and gifts come from this nature, this natural part of you. And it's born and active in you, and it stays with you, and it's always your go-to way of being, which is super powerful when it's used consciously. And the importance of this is once you understand how your body works, you can go back to it of a simple physical exercise to reconnect to who you are and recover when we lose our connection to who we are. So understanding that it is what is the nature built into our bodies is one way of telling people about Body of Nine.
And my natural number is natural number 5, an odd number, and the odd numbers are less body based. We all have bodies. We all actually are informed by our bodies, but how we process it and what we use it for and the other parts of it are very different. Just as the eye contact types 1, 2, 3, 4, the relationship types, if you will, are very different than the less relationship types 5 through 9. And yes, we're all relationship focused. We'll cover that in just a second. So for me, it's about data. It's about how does what is being explained to me, what I'm experiencing, fit into my framework, my world map, if you will. So it's less about how do you feel about things. This is, does this make sense to you? And if you're talking to someone that's very data based, we have worked with 7,500 people. We've worked with every ethnicity from pretty much every continent, possibly not Antarctica, and we've worked with pretty much everybody of every type. So it's your experience that is the best way to talk to somebody else. It's like, this is why it was important to me. This is why it was exciting to me. And your results are going to be different. That's part of the interesting thing about this, is that it affects everybody, at least every one of the 9, differently.
Yeah, so if you're experience based, if that resonates for you, sharing the experience that you had can be inviting to other people. Susan and Martin met with me and they had me do some funny movements, and then they talked to me about what that meant. And the experience was profound. That's what we hear over and over and over again, that I felt really seen and really heard in this experience. And I'd love for you to feel seen and heard in this experience as well.
And one of the things that you can say, and I think is really important, is that people in relationship and families don't share the same natural number. So that you, your brothers and sisters, your parents and your children are probably going to have, well, certainly you and your parents and you and your children are going to have different natural numbers. Your parents and your children may not.
And your brothers and sisters have different as well
Yes,
from you, but not from your kids.
Probably not, yes. And some of your friends will share a natural number, same as you. Most of your friends will not. So just explaining that we're different, and we know why we're different. As adults, we understand right hand versus left hand. As adults and as children, different eye colors that we move. Some people are good at music, some people are good at math, some people are good at soccer, some people. So we all have these built-in body-based talents, and they're different. And what we want to do with people that we meet, so the people that we identify, is honor you in a way that probably you haven't been honored and met before.
Yes, and so that's one thing you can say is that it's a profound. It connects you back to what you know about yourself.
Yes,
at a very deep level.
The magic that you thought you could have as a child, I'm still firmly believing that by not disbelieving in what we can't do, we can do that magic. And I'm not saying that from a woo-woo point of view. It's whatever your definition of magic is, that deep part of you that people haven't recognized, that you know exists, the more that you know is there. You can connect to that knowing your natural number.
So you can also go about comparing this to personality systems. Everybody wants to know more about themselves. And this is a key to knowing a great deal more and getting that deep acknowledgement. So you can compare this to the Enneagram. You can call it the nature-based version of the Enneagram. So if you understand the Enneagram well, that's a great place to start with your friends. Well, you know that I'm this on the Enneagram. Well, in Body of Nine, I'm this, because they're not always the same, because the Enneagram is about your nurture. How did you develop? How did you learn to cope? Which often comes from the people who've raised us. So the Enneatype is much more reflective of your nurture and how you grew and developed than your nature, or your Body of Nine number is about the nature, what was born. What could we see in you from the time you were born to up to this day? It's in your physicality.
And one of the major differences between the identity management things like the Enneagram and Myers-Briggs, and even to some extent human design, is that there is a physicality to what we teach. So there is something that your body can do to get you back to that place of calmness, of power, of experience. The best way to become the stronger you is to know your body, and what part of your body, when activated, is going to make you that strong, powerful, unafraid, free you. And part of the work that we do is help people know who they are so that they know who they're not.
Right. So if you're talking about body of 9 with respect to a personality system, you can, think about how you know yourself through that personality system and how that's different from the way you learned it with body of 9. And so, for example, on Myers-Briggs, I'm an ENFP, extroverted, intuitive, perceiving, and intuitive. So anyway, it actually lines up really well with how I show up as a 6. So I'm an extroverted 6. Sixes can go either direction. I'm intuitive. Yes, I respond to the energy. So it doesn't come out as feeling because I'm not really feeling the way like a 4 would feel. I'm intuiting. So that comes from my interpretation of the energy. Martin also is an N on the Myers-Briggs.
I don't even remember. But
I'm
yes.
pretty sure you were an N. You should be an N.
I know there's an I in there somewhere.
Yeah, introverted.
Yes.
I'm very extroverted. Yet we're both very able to be with people. So that's...
Some of that's learned, however. Part of what we do is...
Yes. Well, it turns out, just as an aside, I don't think introversion and extroversion is part of your natural number. It's part of your nurture. Yes. How did I learn to cope, and where do I... there is some relationship between how much recovery time you need, alone time you need. But that does vary by natural number. But essentially that aspect doesn't. So that's another thing I can compare, that I'm super extrovert. I love people, but I do need recovery time. So I'm not without that need.
And the fun thing is that one of the words that Susan's used is intuition. But guess what? There's 9 different meanings for the word intuition. So every one of us has intuition. Where that comes from and what it guides us to do.
And how it works.
Yeah, it's completely different.
How it works is very, very different. Yeah. So you can explain that too, which is the words are really slippery. That's why we use numbers as the main signifier for the natural numbers, because numbers can envelop a conceptual group easier than a word, because words have meanings to people.
Yeah, and one word is never enough to describe this. And it goes back to, if you are excited enough about your experience being identified on your own or in a couple or in a family, why are you excited? Sharing your emotion with people is never wrong. They will pick up on that emotion.
Yeah.
And some types will then say, well, can you explain why you feel that emotion? Well, that's a valid question for some, and others people won't ask that question. But your excitement is part of that. Now, it's much easier to share that excitement with friends, colleagues, a little bit, with explaining to your children why you want them to get identified. That's a tougher conversation, because they may not be in this place where they're able to intellectually understand, but because mummy and daddy would like you to do this, may work to be better.
Yeah. And we have worked with kids, and we're testing out more and more with kids because we're doing more family identifications. But I think, I go back to the body base when it comes with kids. One of my friends suggested to talk about it in terms of right-handed versus left-handedness. You have one hand that's more coordinated than the other. Well, it turns out your body has a level of more coordinated and more special that comes from which part of your core body is activated.
Maybe depending how old they are, many children might not have figured out left hand versus right hand, but they will know people at different sizes, they have different coloured hair or different coloured eyes. The eyes work the same no matter what the colour is, but some children are great at soccer, some children don't care, some children can play an instrument.
So talent is another way to explain it to children. You know how your friend Johnny is really good at soccer, but he cannot do math to save his life. Well, those are inherent differences in the way we're born. Here's another one. Our physicality actually affects our senses, how we taste and hear and smell. So you can talk about the physicality and the differences.
And also how you actually raise and honor your children, because your children are a lot like you. And so how you parent them, if you parent them like you want to be parented, I'm sorry, but you're actually not going to do the best for them, because they are not going to be like you. And how to raise them is going to be different how you want it to be raised. And once you understand that, and once you can say to them, look, we know this, I can be a better parent for you, some kids are going to say, that's great.
So as a parent, that's a really powerful way to talk to your friend parents. Say, I found out my kid's natural number, and it completely changed how I parent those children. So one of my kids is a 2, and I know she really needs eye contact. She needs to sit with me. Well, she wants me to sit with her while she does her homework, not to do her homework with her or help her, but just to sit with her. So you learn, as you learn about your kids, you can be a more effective parent for what they really need. at their core level.
And also, if you want to be, once you understand your parents' natural number, you can go to the teachers and say, look, this is how my child is
Your
going to
kid's
learn
natural
best.
number.
Yes.
You said parents.
Yes. Okay, you're right.
Yeah.
Okay.
No problem. Sorry.
That's okay. No worries.
He doesn't like to be interrupted because it breaks his flow.
Is that your timing was perfect? As is 6, your timing is perfect.
Some of the time.
Yes.
When I'm present and doing my thing, right? So it's really important to understand all the aspects of things that affect your children, and that's the nurture part. When the nature is supported, then they grow up more balanced,
More
and more like who they are instead of more how they think you should be.
Think all the money you're going to save on
Therapy
future therapy
for your children. You know, it's.
I'm only half joking, actually.
Yeah, it's unfortunately way too true. You know, if you're in a position where you don't understand your kids, and you can say that to your friend who is, you know, who's having trouble with one of their kids. I don't understand my kid. I mean, he's acting out. This is happening. And starting to. There's normal developmental issues. You know, there's classic developmental challenges, but every kid, because they're unique, both nurture and nature, has a different set. But when you understand which ones are coming from the nurture, you can actually support that. So you could tell a friend that. It's like, well, I learned that my daughter as a 2 needs me to make eye contact with her when I'm talking to her. But my daughter that's an 8 and my 7 don't need that at all. In fact, they wouldn't, you know, they get more confused when I actually require they look in my eye when I'm talking to them.
And if you need eye contact, your relationship type, and your children don't, then they're not going to be looking at you. And it's not because they're disrespecting you. It's just not how they process. So
the importance here in explaining body of 9 is we're different physiologically at a body-based level, which means that what we care about, how we present, how we use our senses is not the same. So you can't interpret another person's behavior from your lens. Understanding a person's natural number lets you say, what lens are they using? So what might this mean if I learned that lens?
And you take this to work. You know, your colleagues, you know, there's going to be colleagues that work, some like you, most not like you. And if you have people that work for you, then you know how you support one is actually probably going to be different than how you support the others. Some are going to
be... think about it. In any work environment, there's 1 or 2 people that you just love and you get along with, and they become your friends. And then there's always one other person that is always your nemesis.
Well, not always, but a lot of the time.
So. A lot of the time. Well, they come from a different perspective.
And also, as it turns out, we are used to receiving love and affection and positive things from the people that we're close to. So
yeah, the energies we know well.
Yeah. So for example, if your parents are a natural number at 1 and 4, for example, and you're going to be very comfortable. And if you have a great relationship with your parents, then other 1s and 4s you're going to have a good relationship with, and you probably don't know why. We've all met people who's like, well, I really like this person, I don't know why. And there's like, I really don't understand this person. And they could be standing next to each other. They could be friends, and one person you like and one person you don't. And so we have this unconscious bias that people of energies that we're used to are easier to connect to because it's a familiar energy. And even in the world of dating, you may have had friends or people you've met that's like, wow, I think this guy's really handsome, this woman's really handsome, this person's really handsome. And
the attraction piece.
And they may not respond to you at all. And it's probably even nothing to do with you. You just don't have a natural number, an energy that they're familiar with. So they don't understand body to body how to communicate with you. Because again, 30% of our communication is physical, 70% is the physical plus the tonal, and a very little bit of that is actually in the words used. And even those words are misunderstood. So all of our communication is actually completely, possibly misunderstood. And
which leads us back to our topic, which is it helps you to communicate better with people. That's something you can say to people is like, because we're so different physiologically, we're also different in terms of what we care about. And this can help you understand where a person's coming from.
So we've identified you. We haven't identified your friends. If we identify your friends, you'll all get on better. You'll all support each other better. You'll have more fun together. We often say, and I think with a fair degree of reason behind it, if you get identified, you're going to be happier and you're going to be more on track within 6 months to a year. And that's another great reason to tell your friends to get identified once you've been identified. Or even for you to get identified, even if your friends haven't been.
Yes, if you get 3 months down the line and your friend says, "Gosh, you're so much happier now," or you've made so many great changes, look back. Was that because? Well, how much of this related to that for you? Well, we see it over and over again where people have a impactful identification that gives them permission at a new level to show up, and other people see that, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful when people show up as who they are.
And sometimes it just be coincidence that you happen to get identified when things started changing. If you want to go down that path, fine. Causation, not correlation.
Yep.
The fact that it happened at the same time, just pure coincidence. We're just happy that you're happy and that you're moving down your path.
Well, and I'm relating this to telling friends. So if you notice you're happier, or they notice and they ask, "Oh yeah, I got identified, and that really was a moment that I felt deeply honored, and I wanted to. I got permission to be more of me, because Body of Nine is about freedom to be you. It's about the freedom to express that core authenticity within you and what that looks like, and understanding what that is at a really deep level. And so, Martin's kind of saying all of what he would say, and I'm trying to kind of relate it back to what you could say. You could say the kinds of things that Martin is saying. My life changed when I found out my natural number. We hear that a lot. Did your life change?
Well, I just enjoyed it, which is a great
Yeah, it
reason
was
to
so
do it.
cool, and people like the experience. They enjoy the conversation. They enjoy the intellectual curiosity. They enjoy the that we're willing to go deep with them.
And they feel seen because we get to see you in a way that you've possibly not been seen and honored before. If you're lucky, you have, and if you're not lucky, then we'll be happy to be the first people to see you. But we want you to feel seen.
And we did a couple this morning, and it was beautiful to watch, actually, because they both started out being very nice, and and it turned out they were a 1 and a 4. And we activated the 1, and she spent the rest of the call really in her oneness, with her throat open, her eyes soft. So you see the impact physically immediately. And then we worked with the gentleman in the couple, and he got so much of 4. It deepened and enriched the conversation and the connection that was going on there. And then they sat there in their space, and we were able to talk about the classic conflicts, the classic challenges that they face as a 1 and a 4.
And then they stood up together, and it was just beautiful.
Yeah. So what you can tell your friends about is it helps you to remember what you fell in love with in the couple, to remember not to try to change that fundamental stuff, and understand the difference in your perspective versus your partner's perspective. So in relationship, this returns you over and over again to the place of love and connection where you first made that, and keeps that alive. So if somebody's having trouble in their relationship, you can talk to them about, well, why don't you and John go find out your natural numbers? It can remind you what you fell in love with.
And it really, really helps as a couple to work together. And one of the reasons that we love doing this is because it helps us get stronger. The ability for the two of us to sit here in connection, both very, very different people, while having this conversation with you guys. We couldn't do it unless we understood this, because just being together, have our 5 and 6ness work together, elevates us.
It does. Yeah. And that's another thing you can talk about, is once you can understand, what the classic conflicts are and challenges, but also what you can do together. Martin and I together, we both are intuitive. We both synthesize information. So for me, I'm synthesizing energy and coming up with a direction, where he is taking in signals with his body and then processing that in his being to create a knowing.
So between us, we should cover most of the bases.
The knowing and the direction.
We may be slightly low on the relationship side because there's only the two of us. We can actually activate all 9 of our bodies. That's part of the next step. It's a magical transformation.
It's physiological.
Yes.
And ironically, far more.
Yes.
Far more. And we'll talk about that one of these days.
Some other time.
Some other time. So that should give you a lot of different ways of approaching talking about Body of Nine with your kids, with your families, with your partners, with your colleagues and your friends.
Yeah, and even your teammates. If you're on a team, we've worked with a number of teams, and the results have been very encouraging because people understand where they can best support the team in from which places. And so this is a magical journey. We invite you to join us on the journey and to invite your friends and your family and your children.
And help us tell people about it. Because your wisdom and your approach and your learning is gets integrated into the overall understanding of what Body of Nine's about and why it's important to the world. Martin and I are dedicated to getting this out to as many people as possible, and the only way we're going to do that is if you help us. So please tell people about Body of Nine and your experience. If you haven't had your experience, come have your experience.